Okay.
Remember which lesson this was. This was not the reading day. This was dead words and main idea and detail, right?
Yep.
With the Mars and Earth one.
We didn't get that far. It was just we got to the dead words, and that was about it.
What did we do before that?
Before we did that, you did a fluency check.
Oh, that's right. And
Yep.
then
So
no main idea and detail that day.
we didn't get that far. So
Okay.
what we ended up doing was we did the bell ringer. You did some fluency check in there.
Gotcha.
So some of that part.
Sorry,
So.
between you and Mr. Green, I can't remember which one
Yeah,
this
no
was.
worries, no worries. Thanks a lot for doing this
Yeah.
with me. I really
Okay.
appreciate that. And taking your time. So I know that time is an issue for everybody, so we'll just kind of go through some stuff here.
Yeah.
So I handed you the post-observation reflection form, just to kind of get some more background, some more ideas, and so one of the questions that was on there is, as you reflect on the lesson, to what extent were students productively engaged? How did you feel about that?
I was very happy with how they were engaged with the fluency. They all did it. Some of them struggled a little bit more with reading it out loud versus kind of that whispering slash in their head. And I had to kind of remind them that we're practicing out loud, just because it is different than reading in their head. They got to practice that out loud. I was very happy with that. And the dead words, I think this one is probably one of the first writing ones that they have enjoyed. It's kind of hard for them, especially because that second period class is quite a few ELL students, and so finding those synonyms is hard for them because even one word can be a little bit of a struggle. But I think making it that mummy, and you can kind of see up there too that some of them were having a lot of fun with them.
Yeah.
Making them creative, and they got really far. Some of them got really far into the words. So
Cool. Did the students learn what you intended them to learn?
not everything. I mean, I did want to go over main idea too, so we just ran out of time. But as far as practicing using other words for the writing, I think they did. Kind of thinking about other words that they could use, and then fluency, that was just a practice, so getting them to go through some of the words that were tricky, and then they told me ones I hadn't gone over that they were stuck on, so I think for the most part, yeah.
Cool. As far as like, how do you know that they met the goals that you were looking for?
Well, the posters show me the words. I mean, some of them I can tell was like, we got a little off here, like that's not necessarily what we're looking for, but they're trying and they're looking at the different ways that they can use words. So not like 100% spot on, but better than just saying good every time or just saying fun every time. And for fluency, I was walking around, I was listening, and then hopefully when we graph it later this week, it'll show that they practiced and that they learned some things.
So tell me a little bit more about them when you graph it next time. Can you explain that a little bit more to me?
Yeah, so do you want me to grab the graphing sheet?
Sure.
So this is their tracker. We call it their tracker because it says it at the top.
Okay.
Beautiful sheet. But so they graph their cold read here. So it's the beginning of the week, and we do a 2-week cycle. So they do the cold read, they practice, they take a break one day, practice again, and then do the warm read. So they'll have 2 practices in there where we can go over words that they don't know, that they don't understand, and for them to kind of go through. So that way, when we do that warm read, it goes up, because that's our entire goal, is for their fluency to go up.
Cool. You were talking about listening in and that. Do you keep track of that at all? Do you do anything with that data that you're collecting, or?
In my head, and I'm working on using my tracker that we are supposed to be using for school. A lot of it is in head, just kind of seeing which ones are comfortable reading out loud to, more of the non-academic things too. But listening for, okay, were you listening? Because I've repeated the word hypotenuse like 5 times, and if you're still struggling with it, then what is it? Because you're not paying attention? Is it because you're just not recognizing the words? How can I help you that way? but also I gotta work on that tracker to be like, oh yeah, they're doing a good job. Oh yeah, or oh they're struggling a little bit more on these specific words, like the endings of these words or something. So.
Cool.
Mhm.
Did you change your lesson plan at all as you were going?
Mhm. That class is very much more scaffolded than other ones. My second period for both A and B day was a lot of ELO and a lot of very low fluency. And then some of them, I think that class, because that was 8A class, right? Has a couple that are a little bit higher, or they're more medium versus the other ones are very low. So that's just more scaffolded in general versus like my 7th graders or my 8th graders who are a little bit higher, still low compared to their grade level, but higher than my 6th grade. I don't need to direct as much or give as many examples. I can kind of be like, this is what you're doing, this is how you do it, go.
Cool. And so as I listen to you talk there, this is what I'm hearing you saying is that if you did have the opportunity to reteach it, you might do a little bit more of the kind of the modeling piece. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
So modeling, and I give them more time for that one. So in my other classes, I need to start giving less time, and I've started using a timer too, especially for bell ringer. I mean, they get a little bit more time because they are struggling to understand that English portion. But my 7th grade class, who I think only one of them is ELL, they get 5 minutes to do it now. I set the timer and we do it. We go over it in 5 minutes, so we don't take up that much time.
Awesome. The last, I crossed out the one on the several samples because I figured that as we go through this, we'll pull some samples. You've shared some with me. You already shared one already, and I'll take some pictures of those just to kind of go with what we're doing.
Okay.
And I'll insert that into our final process here. And then the other thing too is the last one on here is a list of Iowa teaching standards, criteria related to the lesson. We'll kind of, I figure when we get them, we'll reflect on that a little bit as well, if that's okay. Okay. So basically, this is kind of the summary of what I had seen when I was taking my notes. And just to show you what I did, I kind of scripted. The kids were kind of laughing because they're like, "Oh my God, look at all that writing!" So that's kind of, there was just way too much there to just like put on one page. So just kind of summarized a little bit of this. And as I'm reading along, please stop me if you have questions or anything so that we can discuss them and go from there. I'm trying to keep this in just a real, like, this is what I saw, not any judgment pieces. So if you catch me on one of those, please say, yo, Mark, stop, okay? Classroom has structure and there's transition at appropriate times to keep students engaged. Teacher has a good relationships with students, evidenced by students' conversations with teacher, teacher making requests and students' reactions, and the teacher's explanation of her reasoning. Okay. Teacher gives direct instructions as she goes through the lesson. Teacher models what she is looking for in her lesson. Teacher makes some supports for the ELL students as evidenced by pre-read of passages, highlighting of difficult words, student asking what some words are. Okay. Let's see. What is this? Oh, there was no learning target and success criteria on the board to start with, but it comes and goes as you went through the lessons and the PowerPoints. So as I noticed when we first started, there wasn't a learning target success criteria. Then you did an activity that was there, and then we transitioned and it wasn't there, and then there was, so it kind of came and go and came and go and came and go. Teacher assisted with ELL students with their tracking, so you were walking around assisting them. Teacher starts the next activity and models it for the students and how to use graphic organizer. Teacher, I wanted to give you one of those. That's why I made a copy, so you can have a copy. Then, let's see, teacher starts the next, teacher assists ELL students with their tracking, so that was the tracking sheet, and I noticed you went around and helped some of them that were having difficulties with that. Teacher starts the next activity and models for the students and how to use the graphic organizer. You chose 5 students to work with in a small group at the back of the room. Others are encouraged to work in singles or in pairs, so you gave them that student choice piece. You modeled the task through speak and point, so that's a technique that I saw where you were talking to them as you were pointing to it on the screen. That was very helpful. Teacher uses gradual release to get students started, so you kind of used a gradual release process for that. Teachers work with ELLs in the back and then gets up and monitors the others in the classroom. Typo there. Teacher identifies one student not working and pulls him back into the group to work with her. Should be him, not her. Oh, with you, her. Yeah, got it.
I am a her. Thank you.
I was thinking of him, but yeah, you're right. Teacher stops class the last 5 minutes and has the students clean up and line up to leave the room. So how does that kind of sound okay? Is there anything else that I missed or needed to add or take away, or does that sound okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. So those were the areas that I saw. Include comments from the public. So then, going forward, there were some things that I wanted to share. Do you have questions for anything that I've done so far?
No.
Okay. So things that I noticed as we were going through this process.
Yes.
Really nice job on their pace and modality changes. That's one thing that was really positive, is that you were hitting about every 10 minutes to 12 minutes, you were changing your modality, changing the task. So that was really good, because then the kids are able to focus a little bit better. So that was really nicely done. I like that. You asked me to watch for positive reinforcers. And although I did not see, like you specifically saying, so-and-so, nice job on this, so-and-so, nice job on that, so-and-so, nice job on that. You complimented the class as a whole. There wasn't really any negative comments to the class as a whole. A lot of feedback to the students as far as how they were doing as they were progressing through the class period. So when you said positive reinforcement, you wanted to look for that. I maybe didn't see that specifically for students, but you were doing that kind of as a whole class. So if that's something you're interested in, that's something we can work more on, is just kind of that whole part. Supports for ELL. That was another thing that you were really wanting to know about, was supports for ELL. You put in some really nice supports for them. Things that I noticed were the reading the passage first with them and pointing out the difficult words on each line that they might have. Asking the ELLs and students in class, do you understand this word? And one of the things that's really positive about conditions of learning in your room was that the students were very comfortable to say, yo, Miss S, can you explain those words to me? So they are very comfortable in asking you those questions. That's a real good job of building some relationships with kids. So you had good supports from them. You could do a little bit more with them. Maybe one suggestion would be like your adding some pictures to your PowerPoints. The learning target success criteria, having that up at the beginning of class, or an area for that, which we've discussed before. A couple of things like that. And I will pull Rosa's stuff that she gave us the other day and take a look at that. There, she's got some great resources there for ELLs that could help. I really like the speak and point piece, because it's very clarifying for them. So even your monitoring as you walked around, you were very specific in who you were talking with. That was really nice. The other thing I really liked, I'll get to the conditions part as well. Conditions of learning was really good. Relationships were evident. One of the things that's really nice about you is that when you're talking with students, you get down to their eye level and chat with them at their eye level. And it's very quiet and calm and soothing, so it's not like across the room or in a power struggle type situation. Even the students that, like the one gentleman that you asked to come to the back, was done in a very nice way. It was very much in a non-power struggle way. I mean, it was how this will be best to help you. I mean, I could see that, and he was looking for that. Okay, so that was pretty much it as far as that stuff goes. The only other thing that came to mind was the tracking, and you mentioned the tracking.
Yeah.
And I did see that you had your tracking sheet next to you at the tables. That's a great opportunity to see where they're at. And then the part of that was, as you were going through that, who actually met your learning target for the day and who didn't, and how do you know that? And like you mentioned before, using your tracking sheet to identify those things.
Yeah.
So those are things that I would say would be good. So do you have any questions about the things that I noticed, or anything you wanted me to kind of go deeper on or question about?
We're working on the learning targets and success criteria, the focus board. Yeah, let's roast us for the pictures. I don't think so. I think we talked about most everything and everything else. That individual versus group feedback, working on those goal settings, that's something I know I need to work on.
Okay.
But
So say that again,
for
individual.
that individual positive feedback versus the group feedback. Like the group one, I know, like we've talked about other teachers and what they're doing, and like, cause I don't have anything set as like a goal and like positive reinforcement right now, and I'd like to, but then also that individual one, the only one that I really have right now is their bell ringer,
Mhm.
and then just complimenting them, but something,
So you're looking for maybe something more tangible for them to.
yeah.
Okay.
And for the students who don't just do the verbal, like some are perfectly fine with the verbal, but then other students are like, well, I'm not getting anything out of this, but working towards that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So there's two other parts I want to talk about, and that would be like professional growth for going forward. So like next year you're coming off of your second year, so next year you'll have your license, and we start looking at ippy dippies and some of those things like that. So if we were to look at things to focus on for further growth,
Yeah.
is what it comes down to. And you've mentioned one already, which was the individual versus the group kind of positives. Okay,
Okay.
so that could be something that we could go in there as well. Some things that are there any other ones that you can think of just offhand?
To
or,
work on.
Yeah, that you would help you with your professional growth.
Still working on that learning target and success criteria and having them up, just having like those expectations more clear for them, because I have the one poster, and then I have the 6th grade poster, but working on that more.
Cool.
And then goal setting for the kids too. That's kind of that individual and group
Okay.
component, but the goal to get the reward as well as just how do I do that reward.
Okay. The area you've hit, like in our conversation, that you did hit one of them that I saw as a focus that we could move forward on. That would be the learning target success criteria and how to monitor for students for their learning. So yeah, that's one that we both have identified. The other one is just keeping to increase those supports for ELLs. And one of the things that I want to throw out to you as a thought is that as you're increasing supports for ELL, there's a lot of those supports that you can also implement in your regular classrooms as well.
Okay.
So as we increase our toolbox of how to help the ELL, we're actually increasing our toolbox for how we help all of our students.
Yes.
Okay? So that's the actions for going forward as far as those go. The only other thing that I had considered doing was the standards piece, and looking at what standards, the 8 standards that we have there. Some of the things that I'm going to be looking at is additional comments regarding Iowa teaching standards, like what kinds of, as we're looking at our portfolio and looking for evidences for each one of the standards, kind of starting to build what that looks like. So I'm gonna kind of stop here now, because time is kind of our enemy at this point. I want to leave you with time to eat lunch and for us to go to our next meeting. But the other thing too is I'd like to get together again and maybe look at and try and identify some of those evidences for each one of those. So,
Okay.
for example, an evidence that you've already mentioned to me, we've got your tracking sheets.
Mm-hmm.
That'll go in as one of your standards here. Your poster would be another great one.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the communication pieces, like anything with families or anything that you've done like that, those are other great ones there. So just start reflecting on that. Here is a sheet that I found that I kind of like. It's just a one-pager on the Iowa teaching standards and criteria, and
Is it the one you emailed to me?
it probably is the one that I emailed to you.
Okay.
And the one thing to remember is that, yeah, we're supposed to have evidence for each one of those, but one piece of evidence can hit a lot of those. So
Yeah.
you don't have to have a lot in there, just as long as we hit those things there, and
Okay.
that's about it. So,
Okay.
do you have any questions for me?
No, I think I'll have to move.
Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to put this all together, and then I believe I have to, once I get this all typed up together, then
Mhm.
I will share that with you one
Okay.
last time before it
Okay.
becomes like official finalized.
What do you think the most immediate thing I should work on getting better at is from that lesson? Like the most.
I
know there's
think
a lot of
that
things to work on, but
I think it's a really good question, and I love the question because it shows that you're already thinking about your growth. I would say those learning target success criteria, making sure that we have them up,
okay.
just because when students come in, they want to know what we're doing today.
Okay.
And by doing that, that alleviates their questions and anxieties so that they can get into a rhythm quicker.
Okay.
And some of the things we've already talked about as far as like a spot for that. I think that might be a really good place to start.
Okay. Yeah.
All right,
Sounds good.
thank you.